All right, guys, here we go. That's right. No awesome intro, no music, no sponsored advertisements, just straight up music talk. And here we go. I am Flash Flanagan, one of your awesome hosts. And joining me is my other co host, officially the Turbo Lover. What's up, Ethan? How are you?
Not much. What's going on with you?
Not a whole lot. We are going to do this. You recently couple months ago took a huge undertaking that a lot of us music, hard rock and metal fans would not want to take. And you did the absolute best of the worst. Basically what that means is he listened to all of his favorite bands, some of my favorite bands as well, and we kind of just picked out their worst albums, and we wanted to see if we could salvage anything from them. And so what you ended up doing was what I like to call a turbo elimination bracket. And you basically did a process of elimination until there was one standing tournament style. How did that process come to your mind? Why did you come up with this and why did you want to do it?
Well, I shouldn't say big fan. I'm a weird fan of some of the worst things possible, like the worst Nightmare on Elm Street movies and stuff like that, and worst albums. So what I like reading about the history and how these things happen, because obviously if an album's less than stellar or if it's horrible, there must have been some problems in the production-wise or even band turnover. And looking around, looking at like Iron Maiden in the 90s, reading about the history of what happened there, and then Bruce Dick leaving, and then like with Judas Priest with Ripper coming in and people not liking those, I just realized some of these albums don't get the credit that they deserve. They're not as bad as people think. I don't think people that say they're bad really give them a listen. Being a Metallica fan, I've had my worst of worst, and I listen to all their stuff, so but I decided, I did this around March, so you can tell it's been a few months. NCAA tournament around that time, basketball tournament, everybody just brackets for everything. I'm sure when you go on Facebook, you've seen Metal Hammer do the best metal bands tournament stuff.
Yeah, Metal Hammer and all that, all those major websites do a lot of those like eliminations and versus battles.
So I decided, what if instead of doing the best of the best, because that's boring, everybody does best of the best, or doing the best song, what if we took some of the worst hard rock or metal albums that are considered worst by the fans, not necessarily commercial-wise, because there were a couple of albums on this list that didn't do too bad with critics and commercial-wise, but they're still in fans' minds regarded as some of the worst albums. What if I took those and made a tournament out of those and figured out which one is actually the best out of these ones that are worse?
That's a very interesting process. And by the way, I'm glad you were the one who did this undertaking and not me, because I don't know if I could have lasted. So I'm definitely excited. I want to see what you got. And I also want to know, and just so people are clear, we're not shitting on these bands. Every good band has done an album that just wasn't up to par. Well, we're going to give that album a chance and see if we can salvage anything from it, because I think that's very interesting, especially now that we're older and we're a lot more mature. We can actually talk about this on a better scale instead of worrying about who was popular, what album sucked, what one didn't, and all that good stuff. So this is going to be very interesting. Can't wait to get into it. And just to kind of throw some, of the bands that we are doing. There's a lot of top caliber bands in this whole thing, but all of them have squeezed out a turd here and there. And so what Ethan is going to do is now present to us how he did this, why he did it, and then we're going to basically go through the analysis, and he has everything bracketed out. And again, this is all opinion based because anybody could do this with us at home. And so basically you could take all your worst albums at home and go through it yourself, and then your list might be different from ours. Ethan's is definitely going to be different from everybody else's. So let's get into it, and let's see who are some of the bands who are participating.
Well, I wasn't biased. I tried to include albums from a lot of my favorite bands, because if I didn't include those, then this would be a biased list. And just to kind of give you people a rundown about how unbiased I was, I have 3 Metallica albums on this list, and Metallica is my favorite band. Flash here knows how much I love Metallica. I have 5 Iron Maiden albums on this list, because they're my second favorite band, and yet the 90s weren't exactly a pleasant decade for Iron Maiden, which I think a lot of bands could say that. I have 2 Judas Priest ones on here. I'm sure everybody who knows Judas Priest can probably guess which 2 of those are. And then I also have 1 Iced Earth album on there, and those are my top 5 favorite bands. So that makes up, this is a 32 album list, and that makes up probably about a fourth of the list. So,
and also I chimed in and I helped him with bands, so some of my favorite bands are on here too, and I even went through and helped him throw a little bit on this list. So you're kind of getting a little bit of both of us, but then basically this is Ethan's vision. So take it away, man. Where do we start? And then how did you get to this process? And then where did you go from here? Because I'm sure that was a lot of music to listen to.
So, yes, that's why it took me so long. I actually probably finished it about a month and a half ago. So it took me a good month and a half to do the whole thing.
And before we start and dive into the list, any honorable mentions? Bands who didn't make it onto the list?
Now that we've done our Kiss binge, I probably could have included a couple of Kiss albums on here. Probably Diver Down's not on here from Van Halen. Apparently that was thrown in together in like 2 weeks. I haven't heard much about that album, so I could tell you. I've also heard Balance isn't a good album by Van Halen, so that's not on here too. But for the most part, I think I did a pretty good list. Obviously, people can tell me if I missed any. I'm sure I did, but as far as I know, just looking at a quick glance of the list, I haven't really missed anything too much.
All right, let's do it.
So, do you want me to explain the process?
Yeah, explain the process and then go from there.
Okay, so basically how I start these turbo eliminations is I take a good couple weeks. This isn't something the list I throw together in a day or so. I took about 2 weeks to get this list together, fine-tune it. Like Flash said, he helped me. I asked for his input. He actually probably has 6 or 7 on here. I think I got up to 19 or 20, and then he started throwing some in. And then what I did was after I made the general list, I went through and ranked them based on my opinions, and that's how I got your typical number 1 seed and your number 2, the ones that I thought were going to blow through this bracket, like no problem. Now, keep in mind, this is all opinion based, and in the next turbo elimination, which we'll probably announce later on the show, people are going to be controversy on that one, because I've already picked a couple of upsets on that one that I know people are not going to agree with. But for this list, I don't think there's going to be too much controversy, but again, it's all opinion-based. This is my view. Just because I picked something over the other one doesn't necessarily mean I'm trashing it or whatever. I have different music tastes. Everybody has different music tastes. I like 80s music a lot. Some people don't. They think it's really stupid and dumb, and so just keep that in mind when I go through all this. That it's all
somewhere out there's a hardcore Gary Sharon fan who's probably foaming at the mouth.
Oh yes, poor good old Van Sharon. But so yeah, and then this was I'm going to give you my pre-official ranking, because my official ranking is going to come at the end after I'm done with the bracket. But I'm going to give you my opinion-based what I thought was going to win. So I'm going to start from 32, and then I'm going to work my way up to 1, because if I said 1 first, it would screw over the whole list. 32 on the pre-rankings was 13 by Black Sabbath. 31 was Lulu by Metallica and Lou Reed. So actually I have technically four Metallica albums on this list. Number 30 was Van Halen 3 by Van Halen. 29 was Entitled by Korn. 28 was Revolutions Per Minute by Skid Row.
Okay, now hold on. Before you continue on with the elimination, you actually mentioned the Revolutions Per Minute. So give me a quick reason as to why that one made the list.
When I went through to pick out, when I went through to do the tournament style bracket in the next, which I'll explain how I did that in just a second, I only could get one song off that list. So further down the list means at the time, I didn't know any of the songs off of it really, so that's why they're further down. Again, this is pre-ranking, so this is before I dive deep into these albums. So as you're going to see, there's like 3 or 4 albums on this list that I'm naming off right now that jumped up 10 spots after I did the tournament.
Oh, wow. Okay. So awesome. This is great. And I have my own little theory as to why that is, but keep going through the list.
This is basically the pre-ranking of Fit List is a gut reaction by looking at this and knowing what I know. So this list is... Oh, I looked at this one goes here, this one goes here. And I think that's what makes it so much better when I actually went through and analyzed it, because the rankings that happen in the final ranking are natural progressions. They go from a gut reaction to an analyzed base ranking. And that's why I said some of these are going to surprise you. They're going to jump up like 4 or 5 spots.
Okay, so to the rest of the audience, to basically break it down, this is weeding out the crap.
Right, weeding out the crap. So now I am on to 27 was Dark Horse by Nickelback, because we all hate Nickelback. 26 was Dedicated to Chaos by Queensryche. 25 was A Different Kind of Truth by Van Halen. 24 was The Path of Totality by Korn. 23 was See You on the Other Side by Korn. 22 was Chinese Democracy by Guns N' Roses. 21 was Living Things by Linkin Park, which... After Chester killing himself, I kind of feel bad about that one, but it does suck. 20 was Save Your Sorrow by Mushroomhead. 19's Human by 3 Days Grace, which was the first album they made after they changed lead singers, and he sucks. 18 is The X Factor by Iron Maiden. 17 is Virtual X1 by Iron Maiden. 16 is Awake by Godsmack. 15, surprisingly very high on my pre-rankings, Saint Anger by Metallica. 14 was Ram It Down by Judas Priest. 13 was Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden. 12 was 10,000 Fists by Disturbed. 11 was Load by Metallica. 10 is No Prayer for the Dying by Iron Maiden. 9 is Risk by Megadeth. 8 is Super Collider by Megadeth. 7 is Demolition by Judas Priest. 6 is Reload by Metallica. 5 is Metamorphosis by Papa Roach. 4 is Trey by Green Day. 3 is Crucible and Man, Iced Earth. 2 is The Final Frontier, Iron Maiden. And my one that I think is going to coast through the whole tournament is Jugulator, Judas Priest.
That's a very interesting list. So now, after hearing that, like, I honestly, if anybody who's listening to this right now, who's a hard rock and metal fan, should agree with most of this list. Let's be honest.
Not the placement, but probably they're probably going to agree that those albums are on that list.
And just so Metallica fans don't jump down our throat, yes, we know the Lulu album was technically not a Metallica album. It was more of a side project, but they still participated on it and put their name on it, so it's on the list.
You should be happy there's at least one song on there that's actually decent. All the rest suck, so I mean, you gotta take what you can give, Metallica fans.
Pumping blood. No, sorry, can't do it.
No, it's high on the table. But
anyway. Okay. All right, so, well, let's get into the elimination bracket. You have 32, correct?
32, 16 on each side. So how I figured out which albums would win this, because you're like, oh, well, this ain't like a sports game, so how did the album win? Basically what I did was the lower seed I listened to first. If I would get as far as I could on the album, and then the higher seed goes after that. So, for example, in the first matchup, it was number 1, Jugulator versus 13 by Black Sabbath. 13 only had one song that I liked. So if I found 2 songs on Jugulator that I thought were better, that album won, which Jugulator won. It was 2-1. I didn't have to listen to the full Jugulator album because there's no point. If you have 2 songs over 1, obviously that one wins. Am I right? I mean...
yeah, that's pretty easy statistics right there.
I won't say who, because then it'll spoil the next matchup, but in the second round, Jugulator went up against an album that had less songs than Jugulator. In this case, if the whole album was good, which in the second round it was, I had to pick out the 8 best songs on Jugulator to compare it to. And the second way I figured this out, if it came down to that, I matched the songs up head-to-head. So I would do the first song that was good versus the first song on the other album that was good. In the end, if I got through and one album was 5-3 in the head-to-head song matchup, that album won. Now, the third tiebreaker that I had, I didn't have to use it until the championship matchup. If both albums had tied in the head-to-head song count, I rated the songs based on 1 to 10 scale. I added the numbers up. and the total number was the one that won.
So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, he thought this through.
So let's say the songs came out 69 to 72, the 72 rating album would obviously win. So now that you know how I ranked it, I'm just going to go through and say the song albums and who won instead of saying how many tracks won. I just wanted to give you an example for the first one. So in the next round, the next matchup was Awake versus Virtual X1, and this was the first. I guess you could say it was an upset since the lower seed, but it's not really because it's 16 versus 17. Virtual X1 actually beat Awake, and Virtual X1 was the 17th. So there's your first upset in the tournament. Then we had Risk versus Path of Totality. Risk won that one.
I want to know how Risk won that one. What clinched it for Risk?
When I did this tournament, I took band names out of it. I listened to these albums without thinking about who the band actually was.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you basically eliminated Megadeth and just kind of compared
Risk is a good album if you take away the Megadeth name.
Interesting. Okay. So any highlights from the Risk album?
Probably the first 4 tracks if you take out the Megadeth name, which includes Bread Fan.
Okay.
So, it's not a bad album if you take away that it's Megadeth. If you just said it was Dave Mustaine as a solo act, it'd probably pass.
Awesome. Sounds good. Keep rolling.
After that, it was Super Collider versus A Different Kind of Truth. Super Collider won that one. Then we had 4 Trey versus 29 Untitled. Trey totally mopped the floor with Untitled because I hate Korn. 13 Fear of the Dark versus 20 Save Your Sorrow.
Hold on. Actually, before you continue on, Korn fans, just so you know, it's not that we absolutely hate Korn because we respect that they have good songs, but on that Untitled album, that was pure shit. There was one good track.
I have Korn on my iPod, so I mean, I say I hate Korn, but I do like some Korn songs. So.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not one of those things where we're just bashing them again. That album was truly atrocious.
So then I had 13 Fear of the Dark versus 20 Save Your Sorrow. Fear of the Dark won that one. 12 10,000 Fists versus 21 Living Things. 10,000 Fists won. There was really, as you're noticing, a lot of the higher seeds are winning. I only had one upset in the first round, which was near the end. 5 Metamorphosis versus 28 Revolutions per Minute. Metamorphosis won. Final Frontier versus Lulu. Final Frontier was 2. Lulu was 31. Final Frontier won that one. Saint Anger 15 versus the X Factor 18. I went with Saint Anger on that one. 10 No Prayer for the Dying. Versus 23, See You on the Other Side. I did No Prayer for the Dying, won that one. 7, Demolition versus 26, Dedicated to Chaos. Demolition won that one. 3, Crucible of Man versus 30, Van Halen 3. Crucible of Man won that one.
Gary Sharon's Without You didn't win you over?
Unfortunately, no, because there's only 2 songs on that album.
All right, fair enough. And again, we love you, Gary Sharon.
14 Ram It Down versus 19 Human by 3 Days Grace. Going in this one, I really thought Judas Priest was going to win this one. Unfortunately, Ram It Down is not as good as I thought it was off of first notice, so Human actually won that one.
That's a little surprising by me, because that Ram It Down album is not bad at all. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely, there's a lot of good finds on there.
When I did that matchup, I think I sat for about 30 minutes on that one trying to figure out which one was better. It was really tough. But in the end, I just barely had to give it to Human. So 11 Load versus 22 Chinese Democracy. I had Load. And then 6 Reload versus 27 Dark Horse, and Reload won that one. So that was the first round. As you can see, not a lot of upsets, not a lot of shockers on that one.
No, although I'm still very upset that Gary Sharon and Van Halen 3 did not take any of that. So
I know, but it's not crap, but it's bad.
And that's just because I'm a pretty big Gary Sharon fan. You know, I have my opinions about the whole Van Halen situation, which we will dive into, but not on this episode. We're going to save that for the special Van Halen episode that we're going to do.
Okay, so on to the second round. I take a quick glance here. I think I had a couple of upsets in this. I had a big upset in this round, actually, so I'll get to it here. I had number 1 Jugulator versus 17 Virtual X1. That was one of the first ones where I had to pick the best songs out of Jugulator because Virtual X1 only has 8 songs. I ended up going with Jugulator winning that one. That was a tough one, but
What song clinched it?
Bullet Train.
Bullet Train. Awesome. Good track.
Then we had Battle of Megadeth. I think I consulted you on this one, but it was number 9 Risk versus 8 Super Collider.
I'm a little curious to know your results on this one.
The winner was Risk.
Risk etched out Super Collider. That is a little surprising.
Super Collider is just from front. It's not a strong album.
As to where the tracks you heard off of Risk, even though there wasn't too many you can pick through, they were strong, solid tracks. So.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Okay, that's very fair.
Then we had 4 Trey versus 13 Fear the Dark. Trey won that one. Then we had 12 10,000 Fists versus 5 Metamorphosis. Here was my second upset. 10,000 Fists actually beat Metamorphosis.
Ooh. That's a little surprising right there.
It was, but then when I went back and listened to the Papa Roach album, it sounded like their other 2 that came before it.
Okay, gotcha. So, well, consistency's sake was on their side.
Yeah. Then we had number 2, The Final Frontier versus 15 Saint Anger.
Now, just so Iron Maiden fans know, Final Frontier, the reason why that's on this list, because really, if you think about it...
Proggy.
Exactly. We all loved it the first time, but if you really go back, there's, like you said, nothing too memorable about it.
And this was my third big upset in this round. Saint Anger beat Final Frontier. And the key to it is Saint Anger's memorable, even if it's in a bad way.
Well, yeah, I mean... That's a very good point, and honestly, that one might come to a shock for a lot of other people, but like you said, there's so much more I remember, even though Saint Anger was bad. Yeah, I can still pull some good, memorable stuff from that,
exactly.
As to where Iron Maiden, I really couldn't do that with Final Frontier.
Then we had number 10, No Prayer for the Dying versus 7 Demolition. Demolition beat that one.
I'm not surprised with that one. Demolition's pretty solid.
Demolition's very underrated for being a Ripper album. It should be that album, even though it might be all over the place, it's still a really good album. Then we had 3, Crucible of Man versus 19 Human. Crucible of Man won that one. And then we had 11, Load versus 6, Reload. We had a battle of the loads here.
That sounds so wrong, but so what was the analysis of that?
Load won that one. Reload really felt like all the throwaway tracks from Load when I went back and listened to it.
Oh, wow. So, but personally, for me, I think the song that clinched it was King Nothing, but that's just me. I love that track.
Load is a straight-up rock album from beginning to end. If you take away the Metallica out of it, like with Risk, it's actually not a bad album. So that was the second round. So now we are on to the Elite 8.
Now, in the Elite 8, I predict Gary Cherone comes back strong with Van Halen 3.
If only.
Yeah. Gary, I love you, man. I only mention you because I'm pulling for you.
He would need the remastered Dreams and sound better than Hagar to get back into this thing.
And he would need all of those vaulted up demos that he did with Van Halen. Again, we'll talk about that on the Van Halen episode.
So, and then in the first matchup, we had number 1 Jugulator versus 9 Risk. Fortunately, the story of Risk is all over. Jugulator won that one. So Jugulator, the behemoth, is just totally destroying the competition right now.
Well, I understand when all you have going up against the Jugulator is the breadline. Doesn't look too good.
Yeah, the Prince of Darkness isn't going to help either. After that battle, the Doctor was calling. Then we had 4 Trey versus 12 10,000 Fists. This was another upset. 10,000 Fists is moving on into the final 4.
That's a little surprising. I'm definitely... I can't wait to see this. And also, just so you guys know, Ethan has actually kept these results hidden from me. He's shared, like, the prelims with me, but I still don't know who his number 1 is. He has the chart, and I still can't see it from here, so I'm finding out with the rest of everybody.
Then we had Saint Anger versus Demolition, 15 versus 7. Unfortunately, the Cinderella story of Saint Anger cannot go any further. Demolition won that one, and they are on to the final 4. So then we had Crucible of Man versus Load. I was a little shocked by this decision, but Load is actually moving on to the final 4. In the end, Load just was a better consistency.
And that's a shocker because Crucible of Man, as much as people As much as Iced Earth fans must not have liked that album, I thought it was a damn good album. That was me, so that's a little shocker.
So, to recap really quick before we get to the Final Four, the Final Four is number 1 seed Jugulator, number 12 seed 10,000 Fists, and then on the other side you have number 7 seed Demolition and number 11 seed Load. So, for the most part, all the heavy hitters, the top 5, did not make it except for Jugulator, which going through and doing this, that was actually a little surprising. I thought for sure 3 out of the 4 were going to be in there at least. I did not see Load coming. I can tell you that right now. And I kind of had a sneaky feeling about 10,000 Fists. I thought that was going to get far, so that one.
It's definitely a dark horse in this elimination.
So in the Final Four, we had number 1 Jugulator versus 10,000 Fists. Jugulator's moving on to the championship. And then we had 7 Demolition versus 11 Load. Your championship matchup is Jugulator versus Load.
Ooh, wow. This is... Okay, I just got excited, man, because now I want to know, because this is it. This is the heavy hitters, right?
I thought it was going to be a Judas Priest finals. I thought it was going to be Demolition versus Jugulator when I saw these top 4.
But in a sneaky comeback, Metallica pulls it out. And then the winner of this will go challenge Gary Cherone and Van Halen 3.
In the mystery album Van Halen 4, actually.
All right, well, let's take it away.
So this was the only matchup where I had to use the rating system out of 10 to figure out the winner, and you're gonna find this this was a really close matchup. The final score, if I remember correctly, was 72-71. There was one song difference in the rating system. Basically, it was one number. The winner actually was Load.
So Load wins the best of the worst.
Load is apparently better than Jugulator.
Wow. Little surprising. A little surprising.
I was a little surprised too when I got that, but when I pulled out the calculator, and I wasn't adding these up in my head as I went on, I just threw them in the calculator, and when I saw the result, I was like, well, gotta take it. So
yeah, and also that's good that you know how to set those boundaries for yourself, but I'm sure this wasn't easy. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Load has won the best of the worst. That was a pretty interesting topic. So now let's just kind of recap some of the. We'll go back through the Turbo elimination, the first ever, and we'll kind of just go back through and talk about why certain things didn't make it and things I thought that would have made it. And what else I would have liked to have seen on here. So
the final official ranking, and I put in parentheses what their original ranking was when I made this, and I'll tell you what those were. My final official ranking, and I'm going to tell you after you ask me all your questions. I also made a playlist of each one of these albums and the best song on the album. So if you ever want to listen to this playlist here, this will be the list. But the official list was... At number 32 was Untitled Korn, which moved down 3 spots from 29. Dedicated to Chaos at Queensryche was 31, moved down 5 spots from 26. Number 30 was Van Halen 3 by Van Halen. That stayed in the same spot, so it stayed in 30. 29 was Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica, and that moved up 2 spots from 31. 28 was The Path of Totality by Korn, moved down 4 spots from 24. 27 was Revolutions Per Minute by Skid Row. That moved down up 1 spot to 20 from 28. 26 was See You on the Other Side by Korn. That moved down from 23, 3 spots. Save Your Sorrow by Mushroom Head was 25, and that moved down from 20. 24 was 13 by Black Sabbath, which was probably the biggest jump on the list. I actually enjoyed this one song that I found on that album quite a bit. It moved up from 32 to 24. Chinese Democracy was number 23 by Guns N' Roses. It moved down from 22. Different Kind of Truth by Van Halen was number 22, and that moved up from 25. 21 was Living Things by Linkin Park. That stayed the same. Number 20 was actually Dark Horse by Nickelback. That moved up from 27. 19 was Awake by Godsmack, and it moved down from 16. 18 was The X Factor by Iron Maiden, and that one actually stayed the same. It was the same ranking. 17 was Ram It Down by Judas Priest, and that fell 3 spots from 14. The biggest loss in this whole tournament, it was 16, Metamorphosis Papa Roach. It actually moved down from number 5. 15 was Human, which by 3 Days Grace, that moved up 4 spots from 19. Super Collider was at 14 by Megadeth, and that moved down from 8. 13 was Fear of the Dark by Iron Maiden, which stayed in the same spot. Number 12 was No Prayer for the Dying by Iron Maiden, which moved down from 10. Number 11 was Reload by Metallica, which moved down from 6. Number 10 was Virtual X1 by Iron Maiden, which moved up from 17. Number 9 was Final Frontier by Iron Maiden, which moved down from 2. 8 was Trey by Green Day, which moved down from 4. Number 7 was Saint Anger by Metallica, which moved up from 15. 6 was Risk by Megadeth, which moved up from 9. 5 was Crucible of Man by Iced Earth, which moved down from 3. Number 4 was 10,000 Fists by Disturbed, which moved up from 12. Demolition was 3 from 7. Number 2 was Jugulator, which moved down from 1. And obviously the big winner was Load at number 1, moving up from 11. So as you can tell, your gut reaction to actually analyzing these is a lot different than at the beginning. So yeah, that was my official ranking for best of the worst.
Unbelievable, bro. That was insane. I'm loving that. And so these turbo eliminations, we want to make them more elaborate. Eventually we'll do like fan polls, Twitter polls, and Instagram posts and stuff like that. So definitely give us a follow on Instagram. I am at Flash Flanagan, number 1, and that's FLANAGAN, number 1. And you are?
I am Turbo_Lover6.
That's right. So give us a follow. Any suggestions or bands you want us to binge on and then hear our review of, send them to us, DM us, and tweet at us. Same Twitter handles on Twitter as well, where we will be taking polls and stuff like that. So now I'm just going to give you guys a little sneak peek of the next turbo elimination that we're going to do. And I will take full credit for inspiring this idea onto you.
I'm also going to give you full credit for the torture you've been putting me through in the last month.
And that is, I loved Ethan's turbo elimination idea so much, I said, boy, I would love to see you do the same thing, but we're going to kind of take a different approach. What is the best rock ballad ever?
100 songs are duking it out right now as we speak. That's all I'm going to give you. 100 songs. Just put that what you will.
And Gary Sharon with Van Halen 3 is back in the running for this one.
No.
No, he's not, ladies and gentlemen.
Unfortunately,
sorry.
I made this list before I found out Without You was actually a decent song. So.
But anyway, so just to name some of the bands that you have been listening to lately, we're not going to name the tracks or the ballads, but just to name a few of the bands. So far in this process, has there been anybody that I've thrown at you that's surprised you?
Prince.
That's right, people. I threw Prince at him. And so, like, what is it about Prince? May he rest in peace. What is it that you kind of found out about him? Because he's not normally somebody you would listen to.
Very, very talented artist. The song that's on there is actually a really good song. Hits you pretty good. It's like a smack in the face. And it's actually surprisingly holding up well against heavy hitters. So.
Oh, wow. So that's very nice to hear. Well, I'm actually not surprised at that because Prince can hold his own against anybody. I don't care what your name is. So
he wrote the whole Batman soundtrack.
Well, yeah, the Batman soundtrack. So still one of my favorite soundtracks to this day. So, well, anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode. And we are getting ready, and we're going to go into the next episode after this. But thank you for joining us. Give us a follow. And again, this show will be on YouTube, so you can stream this whenever you want to. And if you have YouTube Red, you can even download it. So look forward to this being uploaded on our YouTube channel. And we are going to try and bring you one of these at least once a week. And we hope you all enjoy. And again, we encourage you to follow along tweet at us, Twitter polls, Instagram posts. Let us know what you want to see and what you think deserves a fair shot. And then if you have any ideas for any turbo eliminations, let us know and we'll apply them. And so now this is Flash Flanagan signing off and saying thank you for joining us. Ethan, you got anything to say to the lovely people?
Thank you for listening to me ramble for a little while on that one. You're all beautiful.
We love you, people. Peace!